Although trains will always be my favorite hobby, that doesn't mean I can't have two. I'm honestly fascinated by anything that moves, and have recently become highly interested in the maritime world. It's a harder interest to appreciate unless you live near the water, which meant I had to take full advantage while on a recent trip to Charleston. Staying at Patriots Point meant this would be easily achievable, as there are several accessible lookout points from which the harbor traffic can be enjoyed. No sooner than I was in position, my ship spotting began as the Bering Dawn was shoving a maintenance tug through the harbor. Looking at the floating combination craft from the Mount Pleasant side, historic downtown Charleston is visible in the background about a mile away. Charleston is great for maritime enthusiasts, as it provides a fascinating combination of business and pleasure craft. A third type was following closely behind the Bering Dawn, as NOAA's Gordon Gunter was making way for the high seas. A research vessel based out of Pascagoula, Mississippi, the Gordon Gunter was originally commissioned in 1998, operating for the U.S. Navy under the name Relentless. Serving the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Gordon Gunter specializes in capturing data on marine life and fisheries off the eastern American seaboard. She's equipped with 4 onboard laboratories, powerful binoculars up top that provide a 360-degree field of view, and tows a hydrophone to record dialogue from nearby marine life. The Gordon Gunter is named after a NOAA doctor who spent 60 years studying the waters his namesake vessel now patrols. An interesting claim to fame is the ship's use in the 2010 BP oil spill, where she helped to map the underwater plume of spilt oil as a result of the catastrophe. I never would have known all this information if it weren't for the NOAA website, as the organization is proud of its history and clearly happy to help educate others like myself. As the marine biologists aboard the Gordon Gunter sail for the Atlantic, they sashay around the Bering Dawn while the cruise ship Amera approaches from the inlet. Simultaneously coming in from the inland side was the Nile Dutch Lion, a container ship having just pushed off from South Carolina State Ports Authority's Wando Welch Terminal. The Charleston Harbor is dominated by SCPSA and their many waterside terminals, with the Wando Welch, Hugh Leatherman, and North Charleston container terminals making up the focal point. The Columbus Street Automobile Terminal and next-door Union Pier Cruise Port sit across from Patriots Point, with the iconic Arthur M. Ravenel Suspension Bridge splitting the harbor in two. There are also a number of bulk and naval piers, plus the Détiennes shipyard on the north side of town. All in all, Charleston is a busy place for floating traffic, put on full display as the Amera and Nile Dutch Lion approach one another. Laid down in 1988, the MS Amera served 6 years for the Royal Viking Line, 5 for the famous Cunard Line, 3 for Carnival, and 17 for Holland America before finally being bought by Phoenix Rising in 2019. Renovated in Hamburg, the Amera toured Norwegian fjords and the Mediterranean up until early 2025. Calling on Charleston, I believe the Amera is currently hosting transatlantic voyages between the Caribbean, Eastern America, Western Europe, and the Med. There's plenty of information available on Phoenix Rising's website as well, although it's all in German and therefore difficult to make heads or tails of.
Now I'm starting to see that as a light.
On a tour of its own is the local Schooner Pride, chartered daily out of Charleston for dolphin, sunset, or private sightseeing events. In addition to the wealth of pleasure craft and cargo traffic, the city's elite can often be seen enjoying themselves on any number of waterborne activities such as the beautiful sailboat replica. It is, however, dwarfed by the Amera as she prepares to make a 30-hour layover in the historic city. In order for passengers to disembark, the Amera must dock portside at Union City, while the Nile Dutch Lion was still approaching from the north. I was kind of shocked to see the Amera spin itself around right in front of the container ship and estimate no more than 150 yards clearance between the vessels. Although nerve-wracking, the Nile Dutch Lion is the bread and butter of the hobby. Nothing afloat beats these giant container ships. Between their logistical prestige, colorful aesthetic, and sheer size, the Nile Dutch Lion serves container ship giant Hapag-Lloyd, operating as part of their TPI service loop between India and America. The TPI connects India's Port Qasim, Nhava Sheva, and Mundra with Savannah, Charleston, Norfolk, and New York, traveling via the Cape of Good Hope as deadly tensions in the Red Sea approach their 18-month anniversary. At 1,093 feet long and with a beam of 140, the Nile Dutch Lion has a capacity of 8,626 TEU. The standard unit of measurement for the container industry, TEU, stands for 20-foot equivalent unit and details how many 20-foot containers an asset can accommodate. This measurement is applicable for anything within the container world, such as intermodal ramps, export yards at a container port, and of course, the deep-sea container ship. Interestingly enough, nearly 90% of international boxes are 40 feet long, as exemplified by the Nile Dutch's load while she departs from Charleston. Even if not visually seen, a container ship's name will easily identify her. Most names are composed of the steamship line followed by a noun or adjective, such as the Nile Dutch Lion. ND is one of Hapag-Lloyd's largest predecessors, originally an African shipping company that has helped play a role in Hapag becoming the world's 5th largest steamship line. These companies often partner with each other to broaden their reach. However, today, the Lion is entirely laden with Hapag containers. Whether they're the corporate orange, leased boxes, or predecessor companies such as UASC and Nile Dutch, this ship is serving nobody but the Orange German company. I'm not sure if this is exclusive to the TPI service, but it is unusual to see ships of this size not carrying goods for their partnered lines. As the Nile Dutch Line continued on towards Norfolk, I decided to put the camera down and get back to vacationing. I was waterside yet again the next morning, as Charleston was set to depart another beautiful container ship for the 7 seas. Woody and I were enjoying the crash of the waves while we looked onwards to Fort Sumter. The post is home to the first shots of the Civil War, today serving as one of Charleston's primary historical tourism sites. The Amera and her guests were still catching some rays, while an approaching pilot boat was set to start the action. They're passing Schuet's Folly Island, another fortification that served this time in the Revolutionary War. It's open to visitors, just not of the human form, providing a popular hangout for all the local pelicans. Used to guide large ships in and out of port, the river and docking pilots are essential to the global shipping industry. It's standard practice worldwide for these men and women to climb aboard moving vessels day and night in any weather condition in order to safely arrive and depart the ships. It's an extremely respected profession. This set of pilots seemed to be killing the time before their next customer, enjoying the views of the beautiful Charleston Harbor. There wasn't much time to kill, however, as the massive CMA CGM Otello met the Fort Moultrie pilot boat. CMA has one of the prettiest liveries, and I was very happy to have nabbed one of their ships. She's currently assigned to the company's India-America Express service, yet another weekly loop connecting the same 4 American ports with the same 3 in India. Known as the Indimex service, it directly competes with Hapag's previously seen TPI loop, although there is one difference. While the Lion was only carrying Hapag containers, the Otello can be seen with those of OOCL and Costco, 3 of the 4 members of the Ocean Alliance. Evergreen Shipping is the only member not immediately present on the Otello, which is one of 13 vessels operating on the Indimex loop. The CMA CGM Otello appears to be nearly fully loaded as she departs for Savannah, with the maximum load red line just above the water. Savannah is one of America's biggest ports and likely where most of these containers will be offloaded. An interesting difference between the Indimex and TPI service is the amount of reefers aboard the Otello, whereas the Lion didn't appear to have any. There's not much refrigerated trade between India and America, but CMA seems to be capitalizing on it nonetheless. The Otello is slightly smaller than the Lion, with a capacity of nearly 8,500 TEU, although she is a whopping 3 feet longer. When alliances share services, they usually agree for the loop's largest player to operate the vessels, which in this case must be France's CMA CGM. The company hosts all 13 of the current Indimex ships, as CMA was just 1 month into their new ranking as the world's second largest container ship company. They had also beat Hapag-Lloyd in Charleston this weekend, with 573 container moves at the Wanda Welch terminal, while the Nile Dutch Lion had 451. Both ships were assigned 2 cranes while at port and were on their way to Norfolk and Savannah respectively after 12 hours each alongside. As the CMA CGM Otello sails for Savannah, the action was set to continue, with the pilot boat heading out to meet the inbound Maersk Monte Alegre out of Philadelphia. As much as Woody and I could have stayed next to the water, there were fun times to be had elsewhere with the rest of the group. Thanks for ship spotting with me today. I hope you enjoyed the busy Charleston harbor as much as I did.